Chapter 4: The Means for Social Evolution. What do we want? How are we going to get there? What tools are required? Our values consist of what we find important, our goals, what we care about, what we hold sacred and what we want out of life. Values are not immutable and eternal, yet values pushed upon a person at a young age often have a strong power to perpetuate. Traditional indoctrination, such as nationalistic or religious beliefs, can become pillars of a person's identity and are difficult to overcome emotionally. The fact is, human values come from the environment. If you were to take a child at birth from a white middle-class American family and place him or her in the Middle East with an Arab, Islamic family, that child would most probably grow up speaking Arabic and become a Muslim, holding those traditional values that would have been taught by the family and social culture. Most of our traditional values were actually set in motion a long time ago. For instance, the Bible says you shall earn your living by the sweat of your brow. What if society didn't need you to work for money? How could that value hold true? The fact is, values become outdated, just like knowledge and everything else. With respect to the current findings of science, most of the values of society seem to be out of date by thousands of years. That being said, let's now stop for a moment and decide what our valued goals are, both personally and socially. The Zeitgeist movement, along with the Venus Project, has a set of social values and hence goals, which we feel are critical to the sustainability of the species. Goals: clean air and water, nutritious food, material abundance, fast, clean, and efficient transportation, relevant education, public health care, the end of war, personal liberty, an environment that enables us to constantly improve our abilities, human extensionality, reduced stress, and reduced crime. These social goals are far from complex or irrational. In fact, many will find that both religious and secular philosophers have been poetically attempting to address these hopes for millennia. Method. Now, with our basic goals denoted, we must then think about the methods to be used in order to accomplish those goals. Unequivocally, the scientific method is the most powerful tool we know. Observation, logic and testing have long since trumped superstition, intuition and metaphysics. In the words of Cal Pearson, there is no shortcut to truth, no way to gain knowledge of the universe except through the gateway of the scientific method. The intelligent use of the methods of science is what has brought us everything that helps us in our daily lives. The application of science to social organization as a whole is the next step in our evolution. Please see Chapter 3 for more elaboration on scientific methodology. Tools. The material tools that we need to accomplish our goals come from the humane use of technology. From a simple hammer, to a high-tech, fully automated production plant, technological invention continues to ease production methods, while also consistently making what was once deemed impossible, possible. The history of technology is showing tremendous, accelerating development. Coupled with the scientific method of thought, the technological tools currently at our disposal have the ability to dramatically change humanity in ways most would find too fantastic to be true. If you explained a cell phone to a man from the 12th century, he would probably be shocked beyond comprehension at the magical instrument. One characteristic of technology is its ability to constantly defy what is considered possible. In the words of Dr. George Gallup, at every point in history, man has assumed that civilization has reached its zenith. He has smugly refused to place himself on the scale of time that reaches thousands and millions of years into the future as well as into the past. Looked at from the vantage point of 8,000 years hence, approximately the period of recorded history, man's progress up to the present time may appear far less impressive than it does today. In the early 20th century, most scientists theoretically agreed that the airplane was probably impossible. However, the Wright brothers were too busy bolting a gas engine to some wings in their bicycle shop to care about erroneous opinions. Soon after, they defied the authorities and invented the once considered impossible, flying machine. The fact is, when a scientist tells you something is possible, he is likely correct. However, When he states something is impossible, he is likely wrong. Science and technology have continued to defy prior assumptions of possibility, and will continue to do so. It can safely be assumed that whatever the future holds from a technological standpoint, it will likely seem impossible and ridiculous from the standpoint of today's understandings and methods. Process. Now, coming back to our larger point, the three attributes of personal and social evolution are thus: our goals, the method of thought, and the tools to get it done. We define our goals based on what we value. We utilize the scientific method to solve problems and to create or test hypotheses, and we harness technology to make the goal a reality. It is important to point out that this generalization is not linear and each part has an influence on all other parts. For instance, our values are often altered by advances in technology, along with the logical reasoning of the scientific method. If a person is brought up with a value system of helping the poor and then finds him or herself in an environment where no poor exist, possibly due to technological advancement, this value would have no basis to exist. In the end, our ever-changing values are the most important attribute affecting our social evolution. The only relevant values are those that work to improve society and those that hinder its development. Summary of Chapter 4. Our approach to social evolution begins with our values. Our values are combinations of personal reflections on our acquired knowledge, coupled with the traditionalized, cultural indoctrinations we are born into. As time moves forward, our values change. Sadly, most of the values people have today come from a social system that is largely out of date in terms of its relationship to modern science and technology. The process of accomplishment consists of knowing what we want, goals, thinking about the material in the most effective and hence scientific way, method, and using our most effective technological instruments to make that goal become a reality, tools. The valued goals of the Zeitgeist movement and hence the Venus Project are to redesign society for the benefit of all humanity, making sure there is enough of everything for everyone, maximizing personal freedom and happiness, while constantly reducing offensive social behavior, or crime. These values can only be accomplished using the intelligent and humane methods of science and the tools of technology. In the next section, we will show how. Part 3, A Resource-Based Economy. Chapter 5, Social Cybernation. We call for a straightforward redesign of our culture, in which the age-old inadequacies of war, poverty, hunger, debt and unnecessary human suffering are viewed not only as avoidable, but also as totally unacceptable. Anything less simply results in a continuation of the same catalogue of problems inherent in the present system. Jack Fresco. The time has come for a restructuring of our world society. The cause of this need is not some creative interest or intellectual ambition. The cause is the failing monetary structure, increasing world poverty and conflict, the constant corruption generated by the pursuit of profit and the continual poisoning of the planet and ourselves by the commercial industry at large. We stand at the crossroads. Either we take responsibility for our lives and for society itself, or we pay the price. The more we continue within this outdated system, the more unstable things are going to become. The Venus Project. In this section, we are going to discuss the Venus Project. The Venus Project, which constitutes the lifelong work of social engineer and structural designer Jack Fresco, is an organization that wants nothing less than a peaceful and sustainable global civilization. It seeks to update society to present-day knowledge and modern methods. Its tenets are essentially based on the application of science and technology for human and social concern. The social structure it advocates is called a resource-based economy. A resource-based economy utilizes existing resources rather than commerce. All goods and services are available without the use of currency, credit, barter or any form of debt or servitude. The aim of this new social design is to free humanity from the repetitive, mundane and arbitrary occupational roles which hold no true relevance for social development, while encouraging a new incentive system that is focused on self-fulfillment, education, social awareness and creativity. as opposed to the shallow and self-centered goals of wealth, property and power which are dominant today. The Venus Project recognizes that the Earth is abundant with resources, and that our outdated methods of rationing resources through monetary control are no longer relevant. In fact, they are very counterproductive to our survival. The monetary system was created thousands of years ago during periods of great scarcity. Its initial purpose was contrived as a method of distributing goods and services based on labor contributions. It is not at all related to our true capacity to produce goods and services on this planet. As was discussed in Chapter 2, advancing technology is now phasing out the role of humans in the economic labor force. This paradigm shift is going to alter society one way or another. It will either lead us unto a new social system which does not require human servitude for income, where society is designed as a whole to benefit itself with the use of advanced technology being purposefully accelerated for social betterment. Or we will likely be led down the path of chaos and disorder, where unemployment is rampant, crime is epidemic, draconian police state measures are introduced to suppress dissent and environmental resources become more exploited and destroyed. Physical survival and quality of life are based solely on our use, management and preservation of the Earth's resources. Now, with our ever-growing scientific ingenuity to utilize those resources in the most humane, technologically constructive and efficient ways, the tradition of labor for money and money for resources no longer has a logical basis. The intelligent management of the Earth's resources is what is important. In a saner world, we would take account of the dynamic equilibrium within our global ecosystem, and adjust our production process accordingly. Furthermore, a resource-based economy would need to be global by nature, for the ultimate utilization of the planet is an organization worldwide. The planet can only be diligently examined and operated from a holistic perspective. This isn't subjective. The Earth is essentially a toolkit, full of possibilities for us to create an abundance of technology, food and energy. If we do not keep track of all planetary resources and view the planet as a synergistic whole, our abilities will be limited. Sadly, the world today is divided by profit-oriented commercial competition, religious groups, and primitive nationalistic ego identifications, making it currently difficult to organize a global resource management system. This is another reason why the monetary system, in and of itself, is detrimental to our survival, for it inherently limits cooperation amongst tribes. As far as ideologies, it is time we put aside our religious and nationalistic differences and realize that we are all here on the same planet, needing the same basic things. It is only when the world works together that sustainability and true progress will be achieved. More on this problem of ideological division will be discussed in Chapter 7. Industry and labor. Again, as expressed previously, statistics have shown that human beings are increasingly being replaced by automated machines in the workforce, causing unemployment and hence a reduction in the purchasing power of its citizenry. Over time, as this phenomenon progresses, a tipping point will occur when the lack of consumer purchasing power will destroy the monetary-based economy, for it won't matter how cost-effective the production companies are. People will simply not have any money to buy the items with, thus ending the mechanism of cyclical consumption. Those who are aware of this, often attempt to create solutions within the monetary system, usually suggesting some form of hyper-welfare socialist state, where the rich elite own the factories, a virtually non-existent middle class, perhaps 5% of the world's population, works to oversee the machine operations, while the rest of the world is given money to use, in the form of handouts from the government. This type of idea is nothing but horrifying and absurd. It would lead to dictatorship, extreme liberty restrictions and great public anger, for the stratification of class is still there, giving those at the top access to more resources than the billions at the bottom. Consequently, we are now seeing a deliberate stifling and withholding of technological development for the sake of keeping people employed. It is like having an electronic drill available on a job, but instead you use a manual drill because you want to get paid for more hours. This is fundamentally counterproductive. It is nothing but insanity to slow/ignore technological development in order to preserve an outdated social system. The entire point of technology is to free humanity from labor itself. We need a social design that focuses on maximizing our technological abilities for the sake of freeing humanity from drudgery and increasing productivity to its highest potential. Anything less is unacceptable. Now, for the sake of argument, let's completely forget about our current monetary-based social system and take a fresh look at modern industrial production methods, as would be implemented in a resource-based economy. The question is, how would we design a production system that maximizes high-quality output, reduces waste, considers the dynamic equilibrium of the biosphere, and reduces repetitive and mechanical human labor? Based on the scientific method, here is how the logical reasoning for industrial production methods would unfold. Step 1. Survey the planetary resources. Step 2. Decide on what needs to be produced, oriented by priority ranging from bare necessities such as food, water, shelter, etc. to utility-based production items, raw materials, automated machines, technological development, etc. to production items used for non-utility-based purposes. Entertainment media, radios, musical instruments, etc. Step 3. Optimization of production methods, maximizing product lifespan. Step 4. Distribution methods for human access. Step 5. Optimized recycling of those products that eventually become obsolete or inoperable. Step 1. Survey the planetary resources. As discussed in the last chapter, it is critical that we know what we have on this planet, for that translates into what the possibilities are. With this information, industrial production is always adjusted to compensate for any emerging scarcity, along with the most mathematically appropriate raw material distribution, based on availability and its most relevant application. Any scarce resource is immediately addressed by seeking alternatives and substitutes. This awareness can be obtained by real-time electronic feedback coming from all resource sectors of the planet, fed into a central computer database that monitors any growing scarcity or problem. This idea of world resource monitoring is not far-fetched, even if it might sound complex. In fact, the U.S. military and Pentagon already have satellites and ocean monitors for the purpose of defense. These instruments could simply be reoriented for the purpose of environmental monitoring rather than human monitoring. Step 2. Decide on what production is required. What do we need? This is a very powerful question, for, besides food, water and shelter, most on the planet today have no idea what they really want or need, for they have never been informed as to the true state of technology. What we think we need is a direct result of the state of society's awareness of technological development. For instance, a person 300 years ago might need a needle and thread to fix a torn shirt. Today, they would think they need an electronic sewing machine. Yet, more accurately, what they really need is a kind of shirt material that doesn't tear easily or at all. Someone who has dust in his or her home would think, I need a vacuum cleaner. Are they sure? Perhaps what they actually need is a household pressure system that does not enable dust to enter or is equipped with electrostatic air filters that eliminate what little dust there is and destroys airborne bacteria. In other words, if we critically examine what we think we need in a material sense, we can begin to see that needs are always in transition. Science and technology are barometers of utilitarian human need, and therefore all products that are created should be as advanced as is technologically possible. Our current monetary system, which generates wasteful, outdated products constantly just to keep industry and the economy going, does not have the ability or the desire to produce the most advanced tools for our use. This is because the majority of the products produced would not even exist if industry focused on what would best serve the needs of society. Step 3. Optimization of production methods, maximizing product lifespan. If I was going to build a desk for myself, I would try to make sure the desk would last as long as possible. This makes sense, right? If the desk breaks, That means I would have to build another one, at the cost of more materials and more labor. It would seem logical that everything produced in society would have the longest possible lifespan that is technically possible. Sadly, the exact opposite occurs in our current system, for, as previously discussed, the current monetary system thrives on multiplicity and planned obsolescence. Without it, the whole economy would collapse. This mechanism of the monetary system is nothing but detrimental. How anyone can sit back and defend the monetary system's propensity for waste is horrifying. In a saner world, we will make things that last. The optimization of production methods is about using the most powerful materials and methods, while outputting the most long-lasting and effective products. Human labor is not only currently being replaced by machines because it is more cost-effective within the profit system, machine labor is exceedingly better than human labor, and output statistics have shown this continually. Industrial productivity increases when machine labor replaces human labor. This, of course, should be no surprise, for a machine does not get tired and it is always more accurate and consistent than a human, mechanically. High-efficiency labor automation, coupled with scientifically managed resources, as denoted in Chapter 3, will allow for a fluid, scarcity-less environment which could be operated by only a very small fraction of the population. Step 4. Distribution methods for human access. Distribution methods would also depend on the state of technology. For instance, production could eventually become so streamlined that a product is only created when the request is made by a person in need. Regardless, warehouse-like distribution centers, along with automated delivery, would be the most simplistic way for now. Also, since there is no money used in this system, there is little need for a person to hoard their items. There is also no reason for a person to steal something that is available to everyone. And they certainly couldn't sell it. In light of the fact that all goods in a resource-based economy are designed to last as long as possible, the consumer culture values that exist today would also be outgrown. Not to mention the outgrowth of all of the other value distortions imposed by advertising today, which make people feel greedy, inferior or inept due to what they do and don't own. Advertising would not exist in this new system, outside of general product information available to people who think they might need it. To obtain a product, a person would likely go online, search for the items function, select the item and request it. It would be available for pickup or delivery soon after. Step 5. Optimized recycling of the products that become outdated or inoperable. This step actually begins at the production stage, for each product designed has had incorporated into it the consideration of recycling in advance. Ideally, everything produced would be sustainable and recyclable. This strategic consideration would ensure that obsolete products would be reused, reducing waste to the maximum extent possible. Now, one of the more difficult and confusing components for many to consider in regard to the above 5 steps for our resource-based economy's new industrial production methodology has to do with number 3 and the use of machines for replacing human labor in as many areas as possible. The question of who will maintain the machines is common. This will be addressed in a moment. However, let's briefly review the history and application of machine automation and computer technology. The first major automated robot, the Unimate from Animation Incorporated, had a work envelope of 350 cubic feet. It occupied 20 square feet of floor space. The Unimate was deployed for the first time in 1961 at the General Motors Corporation plant in Trenton, New Jersey, where it unloaded a die-casting machine. 6 years later, GM was using the Unimate for spot welding and attaching clips to seat frames. In 1970, the automaker built the first automated spot welding line, consisting of 28 robots. Those who were in the business of making these machines knew exactly what the implications were. In 1962, John Snyder, the president of U.S. Industries, Incorporated, a manufacturer of automated equipment, set up the foundation on automation and employment to try to develop ways to ease automation's impact on displaced workers. He once stated, "I want to sell the automation machines that my company makes, but if our economy turns sour, if the unemployment problem is not solved, I will have difficulty selling them and no reason to make them." To my way of thinking, all businessmen should share this view, that the unemployment problem and the automation problem are as serious for business as for labor. In 1946, the first general-purpose electronic computer was developed, called ENIAC. This computer has 18,000 radio tubes, took up 680 square feet and weighed more than 30 tons. Penn professor Irving Brainerd once speculated that during the 80,223 hours ENIAC operated, it crunched more calculations than had been performed by all humanity since time began. Now, a computer chip measuring 0.02 inches, 0.5 millimeters, square has the same performance power as the ENIAC. Now, machinery today is being combined with computerization. Essentially, the computer is the brain of the machine and instructs the machine in terms of what it is to do. This combination of machine and computer intelligence could be termed cybernation. Cybernated machines today are probably the most powerful and influential inventions humanity has ever created. The possibilities of these tools are on pace to change the entire fabric of society. Beginning first with the freeing of the human labor force. In the words of Albert Einstein, ultimate automation will make our modern industry as primitive and outdated as the Stone Age man looks to us today. This reality is not something we should fight. We should embrace it emphatically. Cybernation is the emancipation proclamation for humankind, freeing us from the drudgery of common labor, opening new horizons for human potential and exploration. In the words of Dr. Norbert Wiener, noted father of cybernation, it is a degradation to human beings to chain them to a gnaw and use them as a source of power, but it is almost an equal degradation to assign them to purely repetitive tasks in a factory which demands less than a millionth of their brain power. These cybernated machines far exceed the physical accuracy of a human being, while also being able to compute at incredible rates, also far exceeding the computational speed and capacity of the human brain. Now, for those who have been indoctrinated by science fiction to think that these new machines might gain consciousness and take over the human race, it should be understood that this has zero basis in reality. Cybernated machines are nothing more than creative extensions of human performance. Just as a hammer will help you drive a nail into a strip of wood, a cybernated machine will perform complex tasks using the process to obtain a particular goal. The machines do as they are programmed, and nothing more. In the words of Arthur C. Clarke, the popular idea, fostered by comic strips and the cheaper forms of science fiction, that intelligent machines must be malevolent entities hostile to man, is so absurd that it is hardly worth wasting energy to refute it. I am almost tempted to argue that only unintelligent machines can be malevolent. Those who picture machines as active enemies are merely projecting their own aggressiveness. The higher the intelligence, the greater the degree of cooperativeness. If there is ever a war between men and machines, it is easy to guess who will start it. Now, a very common reaction to the idea of machines taking over the role of human labor is to distrust the idea due to our daily problems with technology today. From cars breaking down, to personal computers freezing, society today seems to have a love-hate relationship with technology. Well, first of all, as denoted before, in a monetary system everything produced is designed to break down, for everything is a product. Even NASA with its extreme need for the best materials and technology has a budget to deal with, and must cut corners if need be. Your cars and personal computers don't stand a chance. Both industries have a massive sub-industry for repairs and maintenance. If computers and cars were not designed to break down, tens of millions of jobs would be lost worldwide in these sectors alone. Ultimately, the first step towards ensuring that the cybernated machines we devise are made of the highest quality components and programming would require that we outgrow the monetary system, for it prevents their efficiency and sustainability. There is no reason why everything in your home, from your refrigerator to your stove, to your television, to your computer, could not last your entire lifetime without physical repair. How can that be said with confidence? Because the best materials available on this planet, such as titanium, have sustainable properties that far exceed the lifespan of a person by thousands of years. Products made today are made out of the cheapest possible materials in order to increase profit margins. Today you will find that most general products in the consumer industry are created in whole, or in part, out of plastic. Plastic is one of the cheapest synthetic materials available. It has no heat tolerance, is often too brittle, and it weathers very quickly, so, of course, everything breaks down. That is the intent. In a saner world, this would not be tolerated, and the industrial machines devised would not only have extreme durability and long lifespans, the advanced machines will eventually be able to repair themselves. In cars today, there are often warning lights on the dashboard that will alert you to a problem with a particular part of the car. This idea can be expanded to all machinery to the degree where not only is the machine's onboard computer aware of a problem, supplemental machines can thereby be directed to replace the broken part in real time. Even more advanced are material technologies such as shape memory alloys. These metals can literally remember their shape. In the event that a machine's physical structure becomes damaged, an electronic current can be sent through that section, instantly correcting the structure. The bottom line here is that self-repairing machines and structures are growing realities. The problem is that the production of such efficiency is not rewarded in the monetary system, so most people in society have no idea of what is actually possible. In the words of Thorstein Veblen, if the country's productive industry were completely organized as a systematic whole, and was then managed by competent technicians, to maximize production of goods and services instead of, as now, being mishandled by ignorant businessmen, to maximize profits, the resulting output of goods and services would doubtless exceed the current output of goods and services by several 100%. Now, the role humans will play within the high-tech, cybernetic, automated industrial production plant of the future will be that of supervisors and nothing more. Once the cybernetic industrial system is set up, it is simply a matter of updating the system and making sure the system is in order. As time moves forward, we can only expect that the rate of our technological capabilities will continue to increase. But what about complex jobs, such as doctors, architects and the like? We have to ask ourselves, what is the true nature of our occupational roles? What exactly is a doctor, a carpenter, a plumber, an architect, or the like actually doing in their work? They recognize and react to observed patterns. When a doctor examines you, all he or she is doing is referencing what he or she has learned. If you go to a dermatologist because you think you might have cancer on your arm, the doctor examines the skin and mentally references the patterns he or she has been taught. Then he or she might take a sample of the skin to be tested by machine analysis. It is a technical process. There is no reason why an optical scanner could not be invented that can scan your arm and immediately understand what the condition might be. A modern programmed computer with optical technology is not limited by the spectrum of the human eye. It was a memory and processing capacity that far exceed a human's. Even surgery, as sensitive as it may seem to us today, is a purely technical process. It is simply a matter of time before extremely advanced machines replace surgeons. It is already beginning to happen in certain areas. The same goes for every other utilitarian occupation in existence. A carpenter is a person who is hired to fix or create a certain kind of structure. While there might be so-called creative elements to the carpenter's ways, he is still basing his decisions on physics, geometry and modern materials. If you want to build a deck, the first thing you need to know is the best available materials to use and then apply the highest integrity methodology to those materials. Those understandings are completely technical and without the need for human opinion. And this brings us to a very critical realization. one that will have a profound effect on our progress on this planet. The delegation of decision-making to computers is the next step. The utilitarian roles that humans assume in society today are fundamentally technical by nature. This seems obvious in regard to physical labor, for we have already seen machines replace the role of humans in areas such as factories and construction. However, unrecognized by most, our mental labor is now being delegated to computers as well. If this sounds foreign to you, please note that if you have ever used a calculator, you have delegated your decision-making to a machine. We must remember that logical reasoning, which is our cognitive ability to think out solutions to problems from a cause and effect standpoint, is entirely a technical process, based on the amount of information we have at any one time. For example, if we have a problem with our car, we would go to a mechanic and he would use his pattern recognition abilities and associative memory to consider the possibilities that might have caused the problem, along with the possibilities for solving the problem, based on reasoning. It is an objective, technical process. However, a mechanic's human brain is only capable of a certain amount of memory and intellectual processing power. A modern, programmed machine on the other hand, can store tremendously more data than a human, and can consistently and rapidly process information without getting tired or lazy. For instance, let's assume we have programmed a computer with the dataset consisting of the car in question. A computer has been programmed to know every component, every screw and every electronic pathway, etc. of that vehicle. It has also been programmed with the application of physics so it can relate to the actual cause and effect functionality and operation of the machine, not just its parts. When the car is taken in for repair, the mechanic recognizes the physical properties as best he can, and then he goes over to this computer, selects the model of the car and inputs a description of the problem. He might input, left headlight not working. The computer would then immediately present a list of all relevant issues related to the headlight, and then present a series of framed questions to the mechanic that most logically attempt to locate the cause. The computer might say, check the connection of cable 15B, and then show a diagram of where that component is located in the car. If the mechanic finds that isn't the problem, he inputs that new information into the computer and the computer goes to the next logical possibility. The computer is really making the decisions. The mechanic is just orienting its focus. The bottom line here is that there really is no area of human operation that cannot be highly perfected by delegating decision-making processes to computer intelligence. In fact, the only thing that now separates us from machines on a cognitive, utilitarian level is our ability to create complex associations in our mind. No computer today has yet to respond effectively to being asked a complex question in the English language. It requires that the language be transformed into one that it is programmed to understand, such as mathematics. However, new fields, such as artificial intelligence, AI, are beginning to grow with incredible possibilities for this kind of awareness. In time, computers will be able to achieve complex thought processes that were formerly only attributed to humans. There is no evidence to support the contrary. In the next section we will describe how this new human option to delegate our labor and decision-making to a highly efficient computerized system is what will constitute the replacement of the institution of traditional government. Government. The tremendous and still accelerating development of science and technology has not been accompanied by an equal development in social, economic, and political patterns. We are now only beginning to explore the potentialities which it offers for developments in our culture outside technology, particularly in the social, political and economic fields. It is safe to predict that such social inventions as modern-type capitalism, fascism, and communism will be regarded as primitive experiments directed toward the adjustment of modern society to modern methods. First of all, government, as we know it, is a byproduct of environmental scarcity. Like mafia tribes, the governments of the world seek to preserve their current positions of power, while aggressively working to strengthen their economic advantage. As far as social management, all a government can basically do is make laws, establish budgets, and declare wars. They are really monetary system creations. Sadly, due to the very nature of their power, history has become one constant chain of governmental corruption, ranging from the genocidal slaughter of peoples in opposing nations, to the deliberate oppression of a country's own people in order to maintain the established order. The reason why all governments on the planet are corrupt is because they have to be in this system. Remember, they are no different than corporations, trying to survive in the monetary system. They are all in competition with each other, with periodic world empires emerging every couple hundred years or so. In order for any traditional government to keep control over its people, it must push a unified value system. If the leaders of a country want the public to support its wars, they will put statues of great war heroes in parks and have the media push the nobleness of the military. They also very often cite God and allude to their wars as being some form of battle against evil. This manipulation keeps an uninformed public on their side with a narrow worldview. In the words of Albert Einstein, patriotism is a disease. For a person to say something like, "The USA is the best country on earth," is exactly the same as saying white people are God's chosen race. Patriotism is racism with a flag. Nothing more. The fact is, government decisions today are based on the narrow self-interest of an elite, just like the corporations. This is nothing but destructive and unsustainable. As stated before, the more we think about our problems on this planet, from the poverty in Africa, to the destruction of the Amazon rainforest, we see that every problem in life is actually technical by nature. Because of this, there is little reason for traditional opinions in the solving of any problem, for our technical insight can now arrive at most answers using the scientific method along with all known variables relative to the problem. If a person reads one page of a book and closes it, he or she can easily have an opinion on that book as a whole. If another reads the whole book, he or she might also have an opinion. Whose opinion would you value more? The person who read the full book, or the person who has only read one page? In other words, the more information taken into account in the process of decision-making, the more accurate that decision will be. As discussed earlier, computerized machines now have the ability to perform better than humans in both physical and mental areas. Our minds do not technically compare to computers that can access trillions of bits of information across vast informational databases, and compute output results near the speed of light. The transfer of decision-making to machine intelligence is the next phase of social evolution. It greatly reduces human error, and removes dangerous biases, subjectivity and opinion. Because of the limitations of the sensory and cortical equipment in our body and mind, no one can know everything in this world. Our senses are limited in range. Our eyes can only see a fraction of the electromagnetic field. Therefore it is only logical that we delegate decision-making to machines, for they do not have these restrictions. Computers, used as tools, will be able to solve problems, which humans simply cannot due to our physical and mental limitations. It is no different than a person who uses a pair of glasses to see. Glasses are a technological tool, an extension of the human being that helps a person see better than they would normally. Cybernetic machines are nothing different. They are simply extensional tools that expand our abilities. The human species has the powerful ability to improve itself through technological invention. We must realize this and maximize its potential. In a resource-based economy, people do not make decisions, they arrive at them through the use of advanced technological tools that incorporate the scientific method. There is no Republican or liberal way to design an airplane. So why do we use these outdated worldviews in society today? When we recognize that society is a technological invention, with its component variables really no different than the component variables of an airplane, we then see that our orientation towards so-called government should be purely scientific. Politics is now outdated, for its processes are largely subjective and without scientific reference. Politics is an outgrowth of the monetary system and scarcity. We now must work towards a new, Emergent paradigm, moving from a period where the central problem was the sharing of scarcity, to the problem now being one of creating and distributing abundance. Government and the concept of the state will eventually be outgrown entirely and replaced by an objective system of global resource management and technological organization. In a system of abundance, the state, as we know it, has no basis to exist. Government also becomes a cybernated system, which is combined with industry and thus responsible for the production and distribution of goods, along with resource and environmental management. The structural basis for this government system is idealized as follows: 1. A central database containing catalogs of every known material and technical understanding for problem solving and invention. As noted previously, computers have the ability to catalog information and logically compute it on a scale much larger than a human can. Only computers will be able to handle the integration of all known knowledge and come up with decisions that will be logically based on the full known range of data. As stated before, the most efficient decisions are decisions that have been arrived at by taking into account all relevant variables. It is now within our grasp today to begin the development of a central computer database that contains all known knowledge, ranging from the properties, combinations and applications of every element on the periodic table, to the complete known history of technological invention. Once the associative system emerges, which will allow computers to contextually cross-relate all the known disciplines, we will have in our grasp our tool of immeasurable proportions. The limitations of our physical and cognitive abilities will no longer be a problem, for the new method of problem solving and invention will be an interaction with this database program. It could even come in the form of a simple website on the internet. In fact, you would pose a problem or question to the database program and it will give the best feedback that is possible based on the current state of knowledge at that period in time. Again, this process of inquiry and interaction is no different than interfacing with a calculator, but this new calculator has a powerful associative system and an extensive database of knowledge that can not just understand and compute math, it can integrate physics, biology, astronomy and every scientific field into one concentrated awareness. Most likely, the U.S. military already has similar database reference and decision-making programs that it uses to strategize for war. Regardless, in order for this system to be effective, it must also have real-time feedback input from the planet, in order to understand what resources we have and what we don't. This requires a worldwide sensory system. In other words, 2. An Earth-wide autonomic nervous system, with environmental sensors in all relevant areas of the planet, generating industrial electronic feedback regarding resources, operations and other environmental issues. This nervous system is connected directly to the central database program noted above. This holistic system keeps track of all the resources on the planet, while also monitoring the Earth for environmental disturbances which humanity should be alerted to, such as earthquakes and other natural phenomenon. This database would include a survey of available resources, production plants, scientific and technical personnel, transportation, research labs, medical facilities, schools, etc. This will not happen overnight, but if we began by constructing regional systems and over time interlink all of them globally, it could be created sooner than we think. This integration can inform the central database program of what is available and what is scarce, while the database will in turn constantly adjust industrial methods based around the dynamic equilibrium of the planet. Of course, full international cooperation is the only way to accomplish such a system. This issue will be discussed in Chapter 9. 3. Interdisciplinary teams of technicians oversee the system and orient research projects to continue growth, efficiency and social evolution. In an optimized version of this system, no more than 5% of the population would likely be needed to run the show. The more optimized and powerful our technology and methods become, the more that number decreases. Of course, many people often ask, what about democracy? Is this system a democracy? How do I participate in the system? Do we elect the interdisciplinary teams? In a resource-based, global economy, where industry and government are combined into a cybernetic system that incorporates advanced problem-solving database computers, coupled with vast planetary-wide observation sensors. The traditional concepts of politics, elections and the like have no relevance or basis. While this notion scares a lot of traditionally minded people, it must be reiterated that our problems in life are technical, and nothing more. Democracy in today's world is an illusion. It always was. People think they have choice in our current system because they can press a button on a voting machine and put some pre-selected person into power. Once that person is in power, the public then has no power. Did you vote for the space program? Did you vote for the cabinet of the new president? Did you vote for the tax cut? Did you vote for where highways or power grids go? Did you vote for the war in Iraq? No, you didn't. The traditional concept of a participatory democracy is a cruel joke. The game has been used to give the public the illusion of control for countless generations, while the distorted monetary powers at the top continue to do whatever they please. There never was a true democracy in any country in history, and there never will be as long as the monetary system is in operation and scarcity is perpetuated. So how would a person participate within a resource-based economy? First, they would interact with the central database system program, which would likely come in the form of an advanced internet web page which every person has access to. They would then input their proposal. The central database, with its historical knowledge databases and full integration of all scientific fields, would then analyze the concept for its scientific and technical integrity along with optimizing the materials required based on current understandings and availabilities. If the proposal makes logical sense and the optimized resources to make it happen are available, it would be turned over to the interdisciplinary teams that oversee the implementation of the new proposal and orient it into the system. These interdisciplinary teams would be selected and organized by the central database program, based on what they have already contributed to the system. This is a true election, based on what a person has done, not what they say they will do. Furthermore, the public's fear of traditional corruption will have no basis, for there is no reward for it. The interdisciplinary teams do not get paid in any way, for their worldviews have been expanded to realize that their reward is, in fact, the fruits of the society as a whole, and they contribute because they want to. While this might be difficult to consider for those who have been fully indoctrinated into the monetary-based reward system and feel that money is the only incentive there is, let it be known that every day, all over the world, millions of humans volunteer for the greater good. In a 1992 Gallup poll, more than 50% of American adults, 94 million Americans, volunteered time for social causes, at an average of 4.2 hours a week, for a total of 20.5 billion hours a year. This is an incredible triumph for the collective human spirit, for even with the sickness of self-interest generated by the monetary system, humans still strive to help each other and give to society without reward. In the future, those who choose to work in the cybernetic industrial system will do so because it is an honor to serve humanity. They will understand that it is in their self-interest to see to it that humanity lives and works together for the greater good. The reward in a resource-based economy would be the continual improvement of society for all. In the words of Margaret Mead, if you look closely you will see that almost anything that really matters to us, anything that embodies our deepest commitment to the way human life should be lived and cared for, depends on some form of volunteerism. 61 In a resource-based economy, participation is open to everyone, because all issues are fundamentally recognized as technical. The degree to which a person contributes is based simply on that person's education and ability to create and problem solve. This is why expanded education is critical. In society today, the public is always kept uninformed and as dumbed down as possible. This way the government can maintain control. In a resource-based economy, the goal of the educational system is to produce the most intelligent and aware human beings as possible. Why? Because everyone can then become a contributor, greatly affecting our social evolution for the better and improving the lives of all. Summary of Chapter 5: Who makes the decisions in a resource-based economy? No one does. Decisions are arrived at by the use of the scientific method, utilizing computers that gain real-time feedback from the environment, along with a central historical database of all known technical information, and maintained by evolving interdisciplinary teams. This combination could be called the cybernated industrial system. This reduces erroneous opinions and subjectivity. We don't want people in control of government. We want to utilize scientific methods for arriving at more appropriate decisions. In the end, the only real issues for society in the natural world are: 1. The production of goods and services that are equally available to all; 2. Research projects and educational systems to expand our knowledge, understandings and applications; and 3. The constant monitoring of the Earth's resources and atmosphere for feedback and possible environmental problems, enabling us to restore and maintain a pristine environment. Without the wasted energy and resources from going to war and other aspects of the monetary system, we could address true threats to humanity, such as unforeseen variables like tsunamis, earthquakes, illness and disease. The only real problems in life are the problems that are common to all humans.